Okay, this is Mark 14, verses 3 through 9, and it's quiz time. So, verse 3. Where was Jesus? In what town was Jesus when Mary came and brought him a precious gift? While he was at Bethany. In whose house was Jesus when Mary brought him a precious gift? In the house of Simon. And what had Simon been, or what disease had Simon had in the past, evidently? In the house of Simon the leper, so he had had leprosy. According to God's law, he could not have been living in his house or having people over if he still had leprosy. Therefore, I believe that Jesus must have healed him of the leprosy because there was no known cure at that time for leprosy. So while he was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, so Simon still had the nickname Simon the leper because that's what he had been known for. Where was Jesus sitting when Mary came to him with a precious gift? As he sat at the table. What type of container did Mary bring to Jesus? A woman came having an alabaster jar. What is alabaster? It's a white calcite stone that's a soft stone that can be carved. So most likely this alabaster jar was very ornately carved because this was a precious gift that she brought to Jesus, very expensive. What was in Mary's alabaster jar that she brought to Jesus? Having an alabaster jar of ointment or oil, like essential oil. What type of essential oil or ointment did the woman bring? Of pure nard, N-A-R-D. Where does nard essential oil, what plant does the nard essential oil come from? The spikenard plant. Where can the spikenard plant and the nard essential oil be found? What part of the world? India. Was this alabaster jar, was this ointment, was this pure nard cheap? Very costly. A woman came having an alabaster jar of ointment of pure nard, very costly. And in my former video, I explained all these things. How much would a pound of this ointment cost, which is how much she brought, according to other scriptures on the same story. She brought a pound of this ointment, this precious ointment. How much would it have cost in 2023 and 2024? What was the estimate that I found on AI for a pound of this essential oil, nard essential oil? 5,000, and I believe it was 448, so over $5,000. That's in today's money, and how much it would cost today. Back then, as hard as travel was, it may have cost even more for their time period because of the difficulty of travel from India to Israel. What did Mary do with this alabaster jar of ointment of pure nard? She broke the jar. Who else, I mentioned this in a former video if you've been following along, what famous person had an alabaster jar of ointment or perfume? King Tut. According to Mark 14, and there's additional details in other scriptures, but according to Mark 14, where did Mary pour the ointment of pure nard? And poured it over his head. That was Jesus. With what type of emotion did the onlookers, the other people at the dinner, how did they respond to what Mary did by pouring this precious ointment of pure nard over Jesus' head and breaking the bottle of a pound of pure nard? But there were some who were indignant among themselves. What was their first question when they became indignant about Mary pouring this precious essential oil, a whole pound of it, over Jesus' head? Why has this ointment been wasted? So there were definitely two opposing views here. Mary felt that this was the best thing she could do with this pound of precious essential oil. But the onlookers thought that she had wasted it. So who was correct? What did the indignant onlookers think should have been done with Mary's pound of pure nard essential oil, which it was Mary's, it was not theirs? What did they think she should have done with it? For this might have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor. What kind of attitude did the onlookers have toward Mary? So they grumbled against her. What was Jesus' first response after their criticism of Mary? But Jesus said, "Leave her alone." What question did Jesus ask Mary's haters? Why do you trouble her? What two things did Jesus say that Mary had done? She has done a good work for me. And later on he said, she has done what she could. Who did Jesus say that the grumblers always had with them? For you always have the poor with you. Who did Jesus say could do good to the poor? And whenever you want to, you can do them good. And he was talking to the grumblers and the criticizers. Who did Jesus say would not always be there? But you will not always have me. So Jesus was speaking of himself, that he was not physically going to be there later. She has done what she could. Why did Jesus say that Mary did what she did? She has anointed my body beforehand for the burying. So Jesus understood what Mary was doing. Mary was seeing ahead and understanding what Jesus had been saying, that he was going to die. And she wanted to do ahead of time, while Jesus was still there and living in front of her, do for him what she would have done after he died. She had the foresight that many people don't have. They wait until the funeral and then they bring the person flowers. Or they wait until the funeral and then they say nice things about the person. Or they wait until the funeral and then they say thank you for what the person did for them. Mary was wise. Mary was listening. Mary was understanding with her heart. and with her ears what Jesus was saying. He had been telling people over and over that he was going to die. And she listened and she understood. And she didn't just understand it with her head, she understood it with her heart, and she took action. She took the action that she knew to do, which was to show her love to Jesus while he was still there in front of her. But as usual, the haters, the criticizers, the discouragers, the grumblers, they spoke right up and ruined that special moment that Mary had sacrificed a huge amount of either money, or maybe this was her dowry, but it was probably her retirement, if nothing else, of what she would have been able to live on in the future. She does not seem to be married, and we don't know her age, but these were 3 adults seeming to live together, siblings, and none of their spouses are mentioned. So this very well may have been Mary's means of living for the rest of her life, and she gave it all to Jesus right then. Even though the criticizers and the haters and the grumblers spoke right up, was what Mary did wasted? No, because it was done for Jesus, and Jesus recognized it. He understood why she did it. He understood her love. He understood what she was thinking about, the fact that he was going to die, and that she wanted to show him her love while he was still present in the flesh. What promise did Jesus make at that point concerning Mary? Most certainly I tell you, wherever this good news may be preached throughout the whole world, that which this woman has done will also be spoken of for a memorial of her. She will be remembered wherever the gospel of the fact that Jesus came, he died, he was buried, and after 3 days he was raised to life again. Wherever that is spoken of, Mary and what she did will also be spoken of throughout the entire world. And this is now 2,000 years later, and we're still talking about what she did. So do you want to have Mary's legacy or the haters and grumblers' legacy being talked about 2,000 years later for criticizing and hating? From what chapter of Mark did this story come? Mark 14. And what range of verses is this story found in? Mark 14, verses 3 through 9.